Welcome to the Mindset Mile podcast, the show that'll leave you empowered to take action towards becoming the turned up version of your already awesome self. I'm your host, Aisha Zaza, and I'm so glad you're here. Let's go. What is up, fam? Welcome back to the Mindset Mile podcast. This is a very special episode. It is the 100th episode of the show, but not only that, this is crazy because this literally happened on the same day. The podcast also hit 2 million downloads today. Wild. So in podcast lingo, a download means that an episode has been listened to one time. That means one download. It's not that it's being downloaded anywhere to like your phone or saved. It's just basically saying like there's been 200 or 2 million listens to the show, which makes me so happy, so humbled to know that you guys are loving the show, that it's helping you in some small way. And I just want to thank you so much for being on this journey with me and for letting me be such a small part of your day. And thank you for leaning into the things you've learned through this podcast and for stepping into your greatness. Because as you know, this is how we change the world. And if you are someone who has shared your story or your wins with me because of the podcast, whether that's through email or DM or tagging me in your stories on Instagram or sharing on the Facebook page, I want you to know how inspired I am to see you grow into the turned up version of your already awesome self. It is truly life-giving, and I'm humbled that anything I've ever shared has helped you in some small way. So to celebrate and also to hopefully help you, and this can be applied to anything in your life, whatever you're working towards in this season, I wanted to share with you a few things that I've learned over the course of producing 100 episodes of this show. So the first thing is that what you do is not unique, but you are unique, and that's your superpower. So shortly after getting some of the first few episodes together and building the website and I started getting the ball rolling with like the graphics for the show or the album cover and all this stuff, right? Like all the creative, like fun stuff. I started to get a little bit of imposter syndrome. I was kind of in my head. I was like, okay, I feel like this is a good idea, but why in the world would someone listen to what I have to say when there are people who exist in the world like Tony Robbins and Jay Shetty, Ed Milet, Mel Robbins, Gabby Bernstein, and David Goggins? Like those are just to name a few. There are tons of high profile, credible people with incredibly valuable knowledge, endless resources, and huge platforms who can reach many more people. Why would anyone listen to little old me? But what I kept coming back to is what I know is true, which is that even if I had the same or similar messages to share as anyone else in the world, I am the only one who can wrap that box the way I do. If you're holding yourself back from getting started in your profession or building out a business or making an online course because you think the market is already too saturated, I want to give you a little reminder that almost everything in this world has already been started, it's already been invented, and there's someone already killing it at what you want to do. Every single market is already saturated. Think about it. Realtors are a dime a dozen, photographers, dime a dozen, hairdressers, a dime a dozen, influencers, dime a dozen, YouTubers, every other person, social marketers, everyone knows at least 5. Food bloggers. You can scroll Pinterest for hours, but hundreds and thousands of people are getting started in those fields every single day. Not because what they are doing is unique, but because they are unique and have their own sphere of influence, even if it's small. It's theirs and it grows. It always starts small. So all those other people in the field you want to be in, they are not you. People like you. People want to buy from you. Those others have been doing what they have been doing for a long time, and they might be well known, but the only reason they are excellent at what they do is because they knew that the only thing that set them apart was that they could wrap the box the way that they do. We all have very similar yet different stories, but we have different energies, and it's those energies that are always making people feel a certain way. Which is why two people delivering the same product or the same message are going to attract different audiences and customers. It's not that what they are selling is unique, it's that they are unique. So I want you to remember that when you're feeling like you've missed the boat or are convinced what you have to offer is not good enough. Sure, you're not going to please everyone, but that's not the objective. Serve those who want you, who show up for you, and who want to support you. Build it and they will come. The second thing I've learned is know your why and the how will fall into place. So prior to coming up with the idea of the Mindset Mile Challenge and podcast, I remember feeling like there was this giant inside of me that was dying to come out. I knew I wanted to create something in the fitness, wellness, coaching space for a while, but I wasn't clear on what that looked like or what that vehicle would be. But I remember exactly where I was when I thought of the idea, and I remember it felt like a bolt of lightning. I got so excited about the idea and I couldn't wait to hit the ground running on putting everything together. So I got to making my list of topics that I wanted to talk about. I drafted several of the first few episodes. I reached out to my graphic designer and photographer friends who build websites, and they took photos for me. We got the cover art made. But there was one thing. I had no clue how to record and edit audio or do any of the other back-end stuff that makes a podcast possible. Additionally, I didn't even know anybody who had a podcast to ask how they did it or how they found an editor or any of that stuff. I did some of that searching online, but I was overwhelmed at what to even consider when hiring an editor or a company. And I was also getting pretty discouraged at the cost for what some of these bigger editing companies were charging. I had just had my daughter Shiloh, like she was a brand newborn, and I was feeling like myself again. And I was like, I need to bring this idea into fruition. But I knew that learning how to do all the editing and recording and all that by myself was not something I had the bandwidth to do. So I was honestly feeling kind of hopeless. Like, how was I actually going to execute this thing? So I'll never forget it. It was 3.5 weeks after my daughter was born, and my husband and I was like ready to get out of the house to go. And it was our 4-year anniversary, our 4-year wedding anniversary. And this was in September of 2020. So things were still kind of like weird, but we really wanted to celebrate. So I was like, let's drive down to Coronado. We'll spend a few nights and just get outside and relax as much as we can with a newborn. And I remember we were sitting by the pool, and I just was feeling so excited about this Mindset Mile podcast and challenge idea. And then my podcast producer and manager sent me a message through Instagram, and he had known of me basically through a different network of people. And his girlfriend had been following my content for a while, and she was always, mentioned a few things of what I like to talk about and what I like to share. And he had just started his podcast producing company. And so he reached out to me on Instagram and was like, hey, Aisha, I'm Chase, blah, blah, blah. I'm starting this company. I was wondering, have you ever considered starting a podcast? Because I'm doing this and this is what I'm offering. And I literally could not believe my eyes. It was so crazy. He literally slid into my DMs with the exact piece that I was missing. Like I knew my why. I knew I had all this knowledge and experience that I wanted to share and have it live in a place that was evergreen for people to find forever. And I loved the idea of this challenge to help people build consistency through showing up for themselves every day by way of running or walking 1 mile a day for 30 days while listening to some personal development content. But I didn't have the how, right? And I was missing a piece of that how. And this is why when you are clear on your why, the universe conspires to make the how happen. I know it's scary to not know the how or see where the how is going to come in different situations. But I believe to my core that what you are looking for is looking for you. And when you are vibrating at a high frequency, the solutions will present themselves to you. I know this all sounds kind of woo-woo, but the law of attraction is real. It is really easy to get caught up in wondering how something is going to work out. But if you are leading with the how, the chances of you getting started go down significantly because that is stressful. Thinking about the how when you don't know how the how is going to work out, lead with your why. And then the second part of what I want to add here is that there have been times I've worried I would run out of things to talk about and topics to share. And if you would have asked me after, let's say, episode 35, what my next 65 episodes would look like to get to 100 episodes, I would have probably laughed in your face. There was no way I was thinking that far ahead, sometimes not even 3 to 5 episodes ahead. But I'll tell you what, worrying about how I would be able to keep producing content and episodes for the show has never served me once. When I get into that mode, I feel like I cut off my creative pathways and I only feel a sense of scarcity around what I can continue to share. But naturally, in having conversations with people, I end up talking about things that make great content for the show. So for example, like a couple weeks ago, I was talking with one of my best friends and she was telling me about some stuff that had been kind of weighing on her and that she'd been going through. And after listening to her, I responded with some insight I thought would be helpful and comforting to her. And she was like, "Are you recording yourself right now? Because everything that you just told me should be a podcast episode." And I laughed because my mind was obviously not in podcast mode. I was just talking to my best friend. I wasn't trying to be fancy. I wasn't pulling from like episode content, like, oh, let me look through my library of, episodes I've produced to like see how to respond to her. I was just talking with my best friend and sharing my thoughts. And after she said that, I was like, you know what? You're right. I actually can't believe this isn't something I haven't thought about yet to share as an episode on the show. And that is how a lot of my ideas come to me, is just having genuine connections and conversations with people. And I wanted to share that because that is just another example of how the how will come to you when you are not white knuckling it. Lead with your why and the rest will fall into place. And lastly, do the do when nobody is watching. So I've loved and have been humbled to watch the show's audience grow, but when I started the podcast, I was hoping someone besides my mom would listen. This is no joke. I was like, there's a good chance nobody ever hears my podcast. And over time, the podcast gained traction, but I kept showing up every week, even when there were like 10 listeners. When we start new ventures, it can be easy to let the results get in the way of our consistency. What I mean by that is if something isn't a smashing success right away or on the timeline we expect, we in turn begin to lose faith in the potential, question what we're doing, and then we become inconsistent with our activity, therefore ensuring the result we were trying to avoid the entire time, which is that it didn't work out, right? This applies to goals, New Year's resolutions, and lifestyle changes, anything. We come out hot, but then we lose steam after not too long because either our expectations were not realistic or we didn't stick with it long enough to actually see results. So we quit too soon. Don't quit before payday. You've got to learn to show up when nobody is watching or cheering you on. The things I share with you on this show are not just what I think are good ideas. They're how I live my day to day. And I'd be doing all of it whether I had a podcast or not. The biggest influence you will have on people is when you do what you do and not just what you say. People are smart. They can feel when things are fake or where there's no heart. Treat your business like that. Treat your health like that. Treat the things you want to flourish like you mean it, not just like it's for the gram. As always, I want to thank you so much for being with me today, and thank you for letting me spend a little bit of your Monday or whatever day of the week it is that you are listening to this. I appreciate you being along for the ride, and thank you so much for letting me know you're out there. When you tag me in your stories and your posts on social media, it truly makes my day. Happy 100th episode to us. The pleasure has been mine, and here are to many, many more Mindset Miles together. As always, I would appreciate it so much if you gave the show a rating and review or sent this episode to a friend that needs these messages. That is how other people are able to find the podcast. I cannot wait to see you next week. And until then, make it a great day.